We call this regular meeting of the Area Planning Commission to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone tonight. Appreciate everybody coming. We'll start with roll call.
Darren Price.
Here.
Bill Free. Dale Munson.
Present.
Gary Naylor.
Present.
Robert Stewart.
Present.
Brian Robb.
Here.
Bill Mackey. Daryl Drew.
Here.
Bill McDaniel.
Present.
Jeff Wesley.
Present.
And Beverly Reed.
And we do have a quorum, so we can have a meeting. Do we have approval of minutes? Any minutes?
So moved. Second.
Do we have any minutes?
Yes.
To be approved?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I
And
don't
we have multiple ones. So, I want to thank Beth for this.
Oh, okay.
they're attached to this.
And now, I know I had
I
several
knew
in
if I
there.
flipped enough papers.
I was gonna say, I've done a bunch.
Yeah, and so now, any of those ones that we've actually done is just let us know as we go through. Did we end up adopting March 23rd previously?
Did we?
You're asking me?
Yeah,
No, I don't think so. Well, let me look.
because I don't recall doing either. So there's March
Actually,
20.
yes, it's on the approval list from the August 24th meeting.
Yeah,
Okay,
8:25.
okay, got that.
All right.
Okay, so what we have is,
Minus that one. It would be the June 22nd. August 24th.
those would be it.
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion made and seconded that we approve those minutes as presented. Are there any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. Motion carries. Minutes will be approved as presented. Tonight we have two major items on the agenda. Number 4 is a public hearing for parking amendments. It'll be a continued public hearing. And number 5 is a resolution from the Connersville Redevelopment Commission. I was wondering if the board would mind if we swap those around so that we can, since these folks are here representing that item. Do we
I
have
don't
a
have
problem?
an issue with
That's
it.
fine.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead with the resolution. It was sent to us by Bill.
And Scott wants me to read this in for the records.
Okay. Help yourself.
Okay, now prior to get going, as I was forwarded a letter from County Councilor Bevington, and he asked me to read his letter into the record. And it's to Mr. Bill McDaniel, Director, Fayette County Area Planning. Okay, 111 4th Street, which is incorrect, but it's Connersville, Indiana, regarding Economic Development Area, TIF District. Mr. McDaniel, I will be unable to attend the October 26th APC meeting in which the establishment of the above referenced TIF district will be discussed. However, as an at-large county councilman, I would like to share my views on the subject. 30 years ago, as this community's economic development director, I introduced tax increment financing as a potential economic tool to our elected officials of the time. I was a proponent of tax increment financing at that time, and still am. The tax increment financing is a good economic development tool when it's used responsibly. During an October 11 TIF presentation by the RDC, Dr. Robert Taylor, formerly superintendent of Lebanon, Indiana City School System, emphasized the need for collaboration between all entities when developing TIF districts. It was at the same meeting that Connersville Mayor Chad Frank indicated his proposal would be exactly the same as the one presented last year. As you may be aware, I oppose this proposal due to its massive size. A district of that size would freeze nearly 45% of our non-residential revenue stream for generation. In my opinion, the county cannot withstand that kind of commitment without deep cuts to services. However, last Friday, the RDC unveiled a district which did eliminate several parcels from the proposal. During the meeting, County Commissioner Dale Strong and I, and Fayette County School Superintendent Scott Collins, asked the RDC to table the proposal until their next meeting. Both entities needed time to review the proposal to determine if it's something we can endorse. While we're all pleased to see the revision, the remaining proposal is still quite large. Unfortunately, the RDC chose to move ahead in the name of expediency. Since that time, I have learned that our county auditor, in effect, our CFO, has been out of town on business the last several days. She has not had sufficient time to review the proposal, and neither has the council or commissioners. To date, I cannot support this revision without further time to review with my colleagues. I would ask the APC to please table this matter. Please give all of the entities involved necessary time to publicly comment. While I do appreciate the need for expediency, isn't it more important that we get it right this time? Thank you, Scott Bevington, Fayette County Council at Large.
Okay. The resolution that was presented to us, I want to stress that, well, we are not here tonight to determine whether TIF districts are right or wrong. We're here to determine tonight whether it meets the city's comprehensive plan or not, and works side by side to it. Our board does not determine the viability of TIF districts. Am I speaking that out of turn?
You are correct. The board essentially tonight will pass a resolution or not pass a resolution, and essentially it's your objective, your job, responsibility to state that it is either in line with the city's comprehensive plan and approve it, or reject it and state why it's not in line with the city's comprehensive plan.
I have a question then. Is it part of the city's comprehensive plan to bankrupt the county? If
I
you
don't
saw
believe
something that's
that. I
gonna
don't
do
believe
that, would
that's
you
a
do
part
it
of
anyway
that.
because it meets within your resolution? If you see something that's going to affect the county financially for the next 25 years, you're gonna pass it because it all looks good?
Bob, it's not this board's place to determine financials.
It's this board's place to bring money
Yes.
into this county and to make it financially stable. That's our job here, to help this county develop. But if the development is hurting the county at the time, then we have to look at it a little stronger, don't we? We're job creators here.
But
May I speak on that matter?
sure, and state your name, please.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just on my phone. My name's Adam Stone. I'm with Stone Municipal Group. I'm here on behalf of the Connersville Redevelopment Commission. Just for what it's worth, I'm an Indiana active CPA. Spent the last decade working with redevelopment finance. And I'm a registered municipal advisor with the Securities and Exchange Commission, and I hold FINRA license Series 50 and 54. With that said, couple procedural functions. One, the Plan Commission served as step 2 of a 4-step process in approving redevelopment areas in Indiana. If it's found, if the resolution is passed, and the commission essentially makes a vote, agreement that it's consistent with the comprehensive plan of the city, then the TIF area is not adopted. That's really not what's before this commission tonight. It then goes back to the city council for a regular meeting, and then ultimately would come back to a scheduled public hearing of the redevelopment commission to confirm it. All of the council fiscal bodies, the schools, libraries, all have to provide notice to that public hearing as a confirmatory. They're invited to the council meeting as well. Those are really the proper forums for kind of debating the size of the allocation area, the merits of the allocation area, and tax impact statement of all of the parcels has been provided by mail to all of the units. A couple other points. This allocation area, we actually got involved with it this past year, but it actually went through the full process last year. So the original intention to create this new allocation area is now over about a year old, and the parcel list has actually shrunk in that time. The other aspect I would say, just for the record, a TIF district cannot bankrupt the county. A couple reasons. One, counties in Indiana, government cannot file bankruptcy in the state of Indiana. So they physically cannot do that. The other aspect is, keep in mind that the county receives, from a property tax perspective, their general fund, their street funds, their township assistance funds, all of those will and continue to be funded through maximum levy growth. So it has really nothing to do with redevelopment commissions, whether or not there is an allocation area or isn't an allocation area. The county's general fund gets essentially the same levy growth next year. The only funds that are really impacted at all on the county side would be limited to cumulative bridge and special debt funds, and those are what are disclosed in the tax impact statement. So just to recap, this has been a long process. The Redevelopment Commission has held at least 2 public TIF 101 sessions. They've more than complied with all the statutory public notice items. Just wanted to at least put that on record today. Despite whatever you all decide to do, I just wanted to clarify for the record the specifics that were before you, and also the kind of history of what's gone on here up till this evening. I'm happy to take any questions that anyone may have.
Did the state also approve now that TIFs can be included into residential, not just commercial and multifamily?
Yeah, so there's state legislators. There are residential TIF options, there's age restricted options, there are housing for like 55 and older. There's a variety of different TIF statutes that have, the one that is before you is not a residential TIF. It's included to pass through any sort of owner-occupied, for sale, kind of single-family residential type assessment.
So what is this TIF proposal then? Just commercial and industrial only, or?
Yes.
So otherwise, if through the TIF, we can create incentives to help bring commercial and industrial businesses to Connersville, which in turn their assessment or their tax monies will be used to pay back those bonds that was borrowed to incentivize those companies to come, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Is that a simplified-
Like yeah, outside of the allocation, yeah, for example, if there's new development and growth because of what the TIF can do that leads to new kind of residential or new local income tax or new wheel tax or new anything like that, all of that would continue to flow to the county, to the city, to all the respective taxing districts would see a boost in that scenario.
But the only thing that will go towards the repayment of the bonds is the new property tax growth from that company, correct?
That is correct. And even more specifically, because this is a common misconception, I even heard it already on this call, someone said freeze. That is not a very accurate depiction. So an allocation area defines a set of parcels. And when the allocation area is created, that existing assessed value is determined as the base. Now, you know, an easy example, if there's a $100 million new project, then the $100 million new incremental AV would be what the RDC is taxing power is based off of. And that's where the frozen concept usually comes into play. But what's important to understand is each August, there is a state required function to actually pass through adjustments in assessed value back to the base that had really nothing to do with the TIF. So just normal assessment trending, normal inflation, those reassessments, those types of things are actually going to be continual growth to all the base units as well. So to your point, you are 100% correct. The only amount of real estate taxes that would be incremental and in this allocation area would be any real estate taxes that are coming from new growth, specifically new construction that would have not occurred without the TIF intervention.
Are you saying then that if you built a new property that increased the value, not just of the property, the value of that lot, but also the properties around it, that you collected additional taxes on those properties that TIF had nothing to do with building? Because their values went up because of the TIF?
Yeah, if that is purely trending or just adjustment, that is not really TIF capturable.
So you don't put your TIF on existing taxes when they increase over the next 25 years?
Yeah, so the neutralization process is what I'm referring to, and it is intended to adjust the base based on the normal adjusted and assessed values that don't count, that aren't based off of abatements rolling off, changes of tax status, changes of tax appeal, new construction. So just because a property in the base goes up in value does not mean that it should be in the TIF valuation.
But it can be.
It can be, yes. I would point, you need to research the neutralization process, and I'm happy to show you the form. That is the process that goes through and does it. The county auditor is the one who ultimately is responsible for that process.
The county what?
Auditor.
Don't you
Auditor?
think it'd be a good idea to let the auditor look at this thing before we do anything? Since she's the one responsible, to give us a readout on what's gonna happen?
I don't think it's my role to argue with you on that. I believe that they have, you know, I know that they're at least familiar with that process because there's already an allocation area in Fayette County, but I'll defer to others. I don't want to get into an intellectual debate with you.
How does this, and this is something the city and the county, the city a lot longer than the county, but both entities have used in the past. How does a TIF district and freezing of taxes and so on and so forth, how does that compare to a tax abatement that we've used for
Good
years?
question. Yep, good question. It's tax abatements reduce taxes. So, like for the most extreme example, if the city had a $100 million project and they abated the taxes for 10 years at 100%, just to make the math simple, then the city, the county, the library, everybody gets precisely zero taxes for 10 years. Whereas in a TIF, there's, in the most pure sense, the company is paying 100% of its tax bill. It's just those taxes get earmarked and set aside into the redevelopment fund so that they can achieve, those dollars can go to the funding the economic development plan for that area.
That chances are got that factory in the first place. That
Yeah,
plant.
and actually, that's a burden, you know, there's the but-for test that is commonly referred to. The idea here is that growth is not able to happen, right? Like, the idea that TIF is at its best when there's no money that's being argued over because there's nothing's coming. And there's something that's challenged society. It either needs infrastructure, or it needs beautification, it needs, parking or something. There's some sort of challenge to the area, and that it needs specific public infrastructure improvements to be able to make it attractive for private investment. So to your point, the money is intended to be used to actually repay infrastructure bonds, infrastructure commitments and obligations and projects that otherwise there's not a dedicated funding source to do. You know, that otherwise the city and county would have to be funding all those public improvements to be able to attract that sort of economic development. And that's, in my opinion, that is, I think, where TIF is at its purest, is when it's used as a dedicated funding source from the new company to potentially repay for its private infrastructure costs or burden.
So then, how does, in theory, if we're a community that isn't growing industrially or commercially, if we want to establish this TIF district so that we can accommodate the need, or we determine that there's a need for growth, whether that be in commercial businesses or retail businesses or industrial, and we determine that we need a better street infrastructure, we need better sewage and water infrastructure for this growth. How does a community go about getting funds to do that growth or that infrastructure project without the growth coming first?
Yep. So this is where redevelopment commissions were originally formed. So they can issue bonds above and beyond the debt limits of the municipality. There's a special bonding authority, and they can bond off of speculative TIF. You know, really nowhere else in the city can you borrow on money that doesn't exist. The redevelopment statute, you know, I'm not an attorney, I'm an accountant, but as I read it, it is very favorable to debt amortization. So and issuance of debt for infrastructure purposes. What I mean by that is, let's say we go back to that illustrated $100 million new project that would not come here otherwise. You know, it may need, you know, several $1 million of infrastructure improvement. There's no other funding source for. So you essentially use the future taxes from that specific project and the commitment of those future taxes as the repay of the pledged revenues to repay the bondholders. So bondholders loan the redevelopment commission money before the properties are assessed. Those improvements go into the ground, the company goes vertical, they get assessed, they start paying in taxes, that goes into a TIF fund, and then the TIF fund is used to repay the bondholders with a loan. That's kind of the pure TIF model.
Which ways goes back to what I was saying. If your development causes increase in values to the properties around it, then the TIF gets the taxes for the next 25 years and those properties that were improved in value. They wouldn't be worth that much if it wasn't for the TIF coming in and doing what they did. So you get the new taxes. on top of what their taxes were before.
Bob, are you talking about other commercial properties around or residential properties?
Commercial property is what we're talking about now, but they could use for residential because the state allows it.
But that would be
So-
that would be a separate.
Yes.
I think what you're asking, Bob, is a legitimate question. But I think what he's saying is, if the commercial properties around that new business, that is the direct TIF project, if their assessment goes above and beyond the normal growth due to the improvements, does the TIF district get to capture those new revenues off of those other properties, or is it only the specific new property that come in, or company that come in? Is that what you're asking?
Question.
Okay.
Adam, I think that's a question for you.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I would say in the purest, the intention is that like a neighboring parcel that had nothing to do with the TIF project parcel, if it just went up in assessment because the county assessor put a higher grade on the per square foot or something, no, that should not be captured to the TIF. Can it happen? Has it happened? Yes. Is the neutralization process is trying to carve those things out. It's really intended to adjust for that. It's really trying to focus it on development parcels, like new permits. Now, where this starts to split hairs, and I would encourage you to all kind of zoom out from this, like micro example, is, well, what if the assessments, because they did a remodel, or they did a facade improvement, or they looked over and they said, hey, that building's really nice, we gotta make ours look better now. Well, that's where this starts getting a little bit different. Now all of a sudden, was that caused by the TIF? Was it not caused by the TIF? You know, would they have made that facelift? Is that brand new building wasn't put in right next to them? That's where it does get a little more complicated, and I can't give you a specific yes or no answer. I can tell you that the intention is that in the efforts and the goals of those neutralization forms are to really identify increases of assessed value that are really driven from the TIF and isolate and pass through adjustments to assessments that really are just sort of inflationary. Those are intended to pass through to the base so that those units have a growing tax base over time, while also making sure that the TIF is capturing true incremental assessed value for the repayment of their bond.
Okay, so
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
going back to your, no, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry, go ahead, Bob,
Okay.
maybe I'll get it back.
I'm speaking from those, I've talked to politicians that worked on this, from the head of the Indiana Realtor Association, which was behind this, thought it was a good idea. They're saying now they don't think so because they're not being used the way it was set up to be used. They're using shotgun approaches on these cities. They said it was never intended to do it that way. It's supposed to be for specific projects to bring extra money in, that they're willing to wait 25 years to get it. But he said they're using it all over the town to do things that he said it was never meant in the first place. And they're really regretting now if they backed it without more explanation when they put the law through. That's my point.
Adam, I have a question. So if we do a 20-year TIF, let's say, 1 through 5, it doesn't really look like it affects the school, the county, the library. But years 6 through 20, if it's not properly agreed on, it could really affect the county, the city, the county, the library, and the school corporation, correct?
To their cumulative capital funds, yes. To any of their general levies, no.
Okay.
Why the difference?
Why the difference?
Yes, what distinguishes the difference between those funds?
Yeah, so the majority of funds for local government are under levy controls by the state of Indiana legislators.
Uh-huh.
They actually, their revenues grow based on actual salary growth statewide. So they have nothing to do with change of assessment. So, like, for example, in Indiana, by legislation, all the general levies of all municipalities, cities, towns, counties, cannot grow more than 4% next year, regardless if their ABs are higher or lower, there's new taxpayers or less taxpayers. Their levy can grow, they're entitled to raise their tax revenue by 4%, okay? There are funds that have an exception to that are outside of the maximum levy. They're called rate-based funds. And for schools, this would be like if a school has a referendum rate, which is why you're seeing a lot of referendums get passed. For cities and towns and counties, it would be like cumulative capital funds, or debt service funds. Those funds have a specified budget or a specified rate that is applied to assessed values. So as assessed values grow, those revenues grow as well. So that's why in the short term, if there's not an immediate project, there's really no financial impact to anybody. It's really just a GIS layer, and it's kind of forming the boundary and kind of just establishing it. Once projects start happening and new assessments start getting, new buildings start coming up and get captured, then in that case, those, going back to those, like the county, for example, the county's general fund, all those things that are levy controlled, they're going to continue to be able to grow regardless, and they would be able to grow whether or not this TIF passed or failed. The only impact would be to the cumulative bridge funds and those kind of things. But what I want to kind of make sure everybody is on the same page with is that assumes that the project would happen without the TIF. So the main argument with redevelopment commission, and why a lot of times people answer that question that there is no impact regardless, is that if the RDC is really only investing in projects that otherwise would not happen, then even that potential year 10 Cume Bridge Fund financial impact that I'm trying to explain, in theory, when it happens, the project wouldn't have come there. They would have chose some other county to invest in. So I hope that helps. Is there an impact long term? Yes, you should be aware of that. We're talking about kind of a marginal difference on certain funds. It is not your total tax rate. It doesn't impact your general revenues. I should also tell you, Hendricks County, town of Plainfield, they're working on this. Their TIPs formed. A lot of their TIPs were established in the late 1990s. They're coming up to the end of that 25, 30-year life. They're now, those TIPs have been successful. They're releasing. They're passing through. So that's kind of what the future is here. If these are successful, all of a sudden you look over and you have a couple $100 million worth of assessed value that otherwise wouldn't have invested in the community, and then all of that assessed value passes through. So when that assessed value gets released, what ends up happening is tax rates go down, capital rates go up, and those kind of things. So that's at least how it's intended to work.
How close
Thank
are
you.
these communities to interstate highways?
I'd say some of them are very close, some are scattered around. In the state of Indiana, last time I checked, there's 1,100 allocation areas in the state of Indiana. They first got here in the late 90s. That was a suburb. The first one in Indiana, I believe, was 1974. So these things have been around a while. They're everywhere. If you look at a lot of the new projects going on anywhere, almost 100% of the time, they're in an allocation area, because the reality is there's not a whole lot of economic development funding tools other than this.
Okay, sir, I remember my question. What happens if the RDC creates, borrows money and establishes a bond issue on monies that they anticipate income coming in, do an infrastructure project, and let's say it takes 10 years for someone to come into Connersville to establish the TIF revenue, who makes those bond payments for the first 10 years?
Yep. So in the classic example, the taxpayer was required to sign a minimum taxpayer agreement that would be recorded on the parcel, effectively put the TIF lien on that parcel. So essentially, the taxpayer would be required to pay any shortfall in the debt service.
The taxpayer meaning on all parcels within that district, or the commercial and industrial parcels on that, in that
Just
district?
the commercial and industrial on that piece of ground. And this gets way into the weeds really quick. I wouldn't even really recommend talking about this as a hypothetical, because these are project-specific kind of agreements. But I would tell you, in general, there's kind of two approaches. There's redevelopment revenue bonds that are kind of more, everybody, it's the total aggregate available revenues of the commission in hand, not speculative, in hand, that gets bonded off. That's kind of one option. The other option are these kind of project-specific TIF bonds that are really backed by the development. These are essentially conduit bonds. They're issued and repaid solely from the new taxes on the parcel. So they're not overly complicated. I don't want to say that, but they are project by project level kind of financing. It's hard to get very specific on hypotheticals, but that hopefully gives you at least the bookends of how these things can be financed.
Okay, so then why then do we need the RDC to create the TIF districts? Why can the fiscal bodies of the governing agencies, why can't they do it? Why do we need the RDC, a non-elected
Yeah.
board
Economic development.
or economic development board?
Exactly.
Why use a non-elected board rather than an elected board?
Okay,
Careful here.
interesting question. The first would be, from a borrowing capacity standpoint, they're a special district. They're no different than like a park district, redevelopment authority, airport district, solid waste district, fire protection district. Because they're a special district, they have their own separate and distinct borrowing limit. They also, because of the nature of the RDC, they're able to pledge specific revenues. Cities and towns and counties can't do that. The county can't just look at a taxpayer and say, I'm gonna finance this road off of you. They issue general obligation bonds, meaning every single property in the entire district pays a millage rate for that debt. Redevelopment districts have the ability to focus on a or a set of parcels, specific pledged revenues aside for the specific repayment of their infrastructure. So that's probably what comes to mind as like the biggest structural reason they would do this. The other reason that comes to mind is in the statute, there's specific, uses of funds, those kind of things that are unique, specific for redevelopment, so land acquisition, there's different things like that that are specifically crafted to try to help facilitate economic development. And then keep in mind, you mentioned the non-elected boards. Any bonds that are issued or anything like that have to route back through the elected council anyway. So while it serves as its own sort of commission, any sort of issuance of bonds ultimately routes through the fiscal body.
Of that governing agency, right?
Yes.
Like
Yep.
it would be
Yep.
city council within the city limits, county council, if the county had an RDC, it would be the county
That's
council.
exactly right. Yep.
Okay, That's,
That's correct.
that's what I wanted to clarify. I knew that, but I wanted to clarify that, make sure everybody understood that. That,
Yeah, no, this is nuanced stuff. I don't discount that, and I apologize. I wish I could be there in person. I didn't anticipate, I'm happy to come back and do TIP 101 to the planning commission. I know these are important things. I'll tell you that, like I said, there's 1,100 of these in the state. They've been used, the first one showed up in Indiana in the mid-1970s. The first TIP in the United States showed up in 1950. As of pay 2021, there's like $34 billion in the state of Indiana that was created in redevelopment districts. I mean, these are massive economic development tools. They're a different tool than like an abatement, and they're really meant to help finance infrastructure costs.
okay. I don't know whether this question is for you or for the mayor, but can one of you explain to this board the necessity for such a large district? I think that's been one of the questions that's been,
May I add another question to that, Gary? Why is it so important to get it done today if it could be done a month or two, because they're running out of time? What time?
and either one of you.
Adam can confirm. Can you hear me, Adam?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, just making sure. The size of the district is, because there's several reasons for the size of the district. A, it's covering blighted area or industrial area that needs to be redeveloped, or areas we gotta have major infrastructure improvement. We know we got a lot of that. Second thing is you can only use those TIF dollars within the district or something bordering the district. So I can't just say we got TIF district here, I want to use on this side of town. I can't do that. It has to be connected somehow. And so that's why we looked at the connectability piece. We looked at, that's why we ended up cutting it in half basically, because there's a lot of fear on TIF. There's a lot of misconceptions about TIF. There really is. So we cut it in half just to try to show everyone now. In cutting it in half, we did increase our risk for failure. Because a larger TIF area, if we bond a project and say that company goes bankrupt, if you have a larger TIF area, it can help fund those offsets and costs. If, Adam, you can correct me on that, is that accurate?
Yeah, it's essentially just more parcels. So yeah, you're correct.
What happened with the Wazata TIF was it was one parcel, well, it was multiple parcels, it was one company. All the bonds went back to the landowners, or the bondholders, which is the property owners, by the way, because it didn't benefit the city or county one bit. It was a bad TIF, but it was done to try to attract someone here. Can't fault them for what they did. But when they went bankrupt, who was on the hook for that? We could have been. And that's several $100,000 payment a year.
We,
The city.
the city taxing
Absolutely.
agent.
So
Okay.
that's why we hired Baker Tilly, who is Baker Tilly, Jeff, you remember, was it
Barnes and Thornburg.
Barnes and Thornburg, sorry, we do a lot to help us review that contract because we saw what was coming. That's a bad TIF, a small TIF, by the way, is a bad TIF. So that's where we learned our lesson very quickly is that could be a bad thing. So we looked at our future growth, we looked at our areas where we need to upgrade our infrastructure, and that's where we drew the lines. We took out half of it because we can still make this work. It's gonna be difficult, but we're gonna make it work. So that's really the reasoning behind it. And what was your question again, sir?
What's the hurry?
We've been doing this for 3 years. RDC's been talking about it for 3 years. I've been doing TIF 101 since January. Every RDC meeting, we did special meetings because a lot of people said they couldn't be there during the day, so we did 2 of them. We did one at night, one during the day. And I don't think 3 years is a hurry. We are trying to get it through so we can get moving on this because it takes several years for a TIF to be successful.
Well, you want it back to January of 2023, why not January 2024?
How long do you want to defer our growth? We've been declining since the 1980s, Bob. You made a comment about your budget's going down. You're looking at a budget deficit this year. How long can you do that before we invest in growth?
That's
my
what we're
question.
trying to do.
How
But
are
we
you
want to
doing
do
that?
it right. Let's let the auditor look at this. Let's see what's going to happen here.
We've been doing it for 3 years. They've had every opportunity.
The county council has no say in any of this. The only ones to talk about is city council and this plan right here. That's the only ones that have a say
We've
so.
had county council and county commissioners at every RDC meeting and the special meetings. APC's been invited. We've been doing it for I know Adam said we've had 2 public meetings, but that's 2 public meetings to invite everyone. We've been doing them for the whole time. And everyone's, I know you had several been there the whole time. They've had every opportunity. I ask every single time, every meeting, the floor's open, ask away. Every meeting. You've
I've
been to
a
one,
couple
sir.
of them. I have been there.
You've been to one, the
Okay.
special one.
Here's what I'd like to know, Chad, is I appreciate you looking forward. I do. I mean, because I'm gonna have grandkids here someday, so I think that's very good. I think this is a great thing if it's worked out right. What I would like to see for me is you, the superintendent, Mr. Strong, RDC president, sit down and make sure this is going to work for everyone involved. That way, if it fails, nobody can point fingers. We make sure it's good for every person involved, and I think this works well. But we're setting ourselves up now, but I don't know how the county feels about it, or school, but we're setting it up because we're not on the same team. And as long as we're not on the same team, I don't think this works. So for me to say yes, I would like to see the 4 of you guys sit down and make sure this is good. Now, I appreciate everything you've done up to this point and you've taken time with it, but I think I need to make sure everybody's on the same page.
But we have done that. We've invited everyone for the last 3 years. They've been in every meeting. I can't do backdoor meetings. I'm not gonna do backdoor.
I'm not
meetings.
asking you to back,
It's
I'm
a
just
public
wanting to
meeting.
make sure everyone's on the same page, and I don't feel like every entity is
Yeah,
on the
but
You
same.
have a
The invite's-
representative
the
on
invite's been
RDC
there.
for the school board.
Pardon?
You have a school board representative on the RDC.
Yeah, but you don't have a vote.
I tried to get them a vote. They didn't want to do it. The one now can't do it because he doesn't live in the city. But
I'm
he
not
has a
looking
voice.
for-
He sits at the table. He gives his input. Does anybody from there?
I am not looking for an argument, I just want
I know, I'm
to,
just
I
making
just
a
want to
fact.
make sure county's on the same page, this library's on the same page, the school's on.
Understand. I
And
agree.
if that happens, I think TIF takes off for everybody.
Well, I agree, but and they've been at every meeting is my point. They've been there. Every meeting.
Right, but I don't feel like the 4 entities have just sat down and discussed, I don't know how you make that happen, I don't want a backdoor meeting, no, I don't. But I mean, how do we get just the 4 of you in a room and we talk about this and make sure everyone's on the same page?
That's why I've had the expert in the room who knows how to craft it at every meeting, answering any question asked.
Board, that is just how I feel about it, I mean, for me.
Can I make a left-hand turn here? So we don't have a TIF district where Opportunity Drive is.
No.
So how did we do that infrastructure?
City.
City, okay.
We were involved in that from day one. And and county had opportunity, we've talked about it at RDC, we've talked about everyone, and the city took care of that.
Okay. And so I can't see that the city can continue to do, I mean, there's a lot of work been done up there. And if we get all those lots filled up, great. And that's gonna generate good revenue for us. But if we had a TIF district in place up there, we'd be off and running.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I hate to argue too, however, I was specifically told by people at the State House it was never meant to be a shotgun approach to any community. It's specific projects that you have in store that you plan on doing. You're more worried about a failure there where you have a bigger project, you can fund it, but I don't think that's what it was created for. The towns that need to have specific things done, we're gonna create a TIF and get the taxes off that thing for redevelopment, and we're gonna develop. And
That's
we don't want
also-
anywhere in the city, we wanna go, we can't do that.
Some of them have done that, and those are the ones that have failed. The ones that create a small specific TIF have failed, that's why we don't wanna do that. We want the
That's
ones
what
that,
they were made for.
I can't answer that, cause that was back in the 70s, I was still wearing diapers.
Well, that was about a month or two ago. I've talked to.
Were they there, I don't know were they there when they created? I don't have any idea. The point is, you got 1,100 TIF districts that are working effectively. We're trying to compete with those communities, and since the 1980s, how many have we won? We're not. We're losing.
Politicians can't
Every
even tell you
single
why we
time.
got a seatbelt law, so don't worry about that.
I'm just making a statement. If we wanna grow, we have to think outside the box, and we've gotta push forward. Because just the town he's mentioned, they come off on 20-year TIF, 30-year TIF, I don't remember which one it was. They are now reaping the benefits of that. That's foresight on growth. We are king in this community of killing growth because we can't see the future. And yeah, that ticks me off, just like you. I want my kids to stay here. And all we've done is kill growth since I was a kid. Several projects we have killed because we have no foresight for growth. I'm sorry I'm a little passionate, because growth is something I'm passionate about. Growth is something I'm being held accountable to. If we want to grow and we don't have the tools to do it, how do you expect it to be done?
How
That's
much
called
does
the
redevelopment
definition
have
of insanity.
Do you have funding now for redevelopment?
Yeah, how did we get that funding? When I came in office, we had $34,000. We had the TIF fall apart. We held them accountable. We spent, I don't remember what it was, 10, 20 grand, Jeff? In not in litigation, but in negotiations with our attorneys and different attorneys to protect the city and hold them accountable to their contract, which that took some very creativeness because it's 100% in their favor. But we held them accountable, that building sold, we reaped the money from that. And the second round of money we got, I don't remember the exact amount, so I won't quote it. We got about 1.6 million total. That was a total spend, we spent some of it. The other remaining money come from the land we sold that the Riverboat Casinos gave money to purchase for an IT park. There's a pipeline running through it. You're never gonna see an IT park and no one's gonna build on a pipeline. So we asked them, can we have permission to sell that and utilize those dollars for redevelopment of our community? And they said, absolutely. Now, that's the only money we have. We have no other income coming in. And we have no way to offer redevelopment other than those dollars. And that's what we're using those dollars for. We're very frugal with those dollars. What we spend it on, I got a project right now that we want to spend the money on. I'm holding it up. I'm getting criticized for it and killed because I'm holding it up because the cost just doubled. And I don't think that's a good use. So we're trying to find other ways of doing that. That's where we're going to be creative. That's where the redevelopment commission has creativity to do that. And the
So
ability
if
to do
you
that.
had the TIF gone, you could get bond money to do what you need to do.
I'm sorry, say that again.
If you got the TIF through, you'd be able to get the bond money to do, because you can't do it with what
Yeah.
you've got now.
RDC has the ability to do bond capacity different than the city
Yeah,
does.
okay,
That
that's
is
what I'm
true.
saying.
But city council has to prove that.
But,
The RDC can't just do that.
just clarification, the RDC borrows up, gets a bond, X amount of dollars, whatever amount it is. You don't get the project that you were going after, and that bond has no way to be repaid. It falls back onto the city taxpayer, complete taxpayer.
Adam, you want to explain that?
Yeah, that scenario would never happen. That it would never bond, that would never, no one would underwrite that. So this doomsday scenario is not realistic. So
But that's what you said earlier.
Yeah, the closest that would come to that would be like a scenario where the redevelopment commission essentially issues bonds, and the entire area stops paying taxes. You know what I mean? Like, it's just such an unlikely scenario. It's, the reality is if all of that would happen, there would be tax liens, it's unrealistic. It's such a remote chance. What does kind of ring true in that is like single property, back, debt, and, with a minimum taxpayer agreement, all of this stuff is well beyond probably the scope of tonight's discussion. Those are complex finances. I'm not gonna, but that's well beyond what we're talking about today and what's before you all today.
Okay, but, and I know this is another what if, but I guess I'm just trying to draw a picture for myself and everyone else sitting here. If the redevelopment commission determines that 2 miles of new streets and 10 miles of new water lines and sewer lines need to be put in for potential growth in the 18th Street industrial area, for instance. And they wanted to redevelop that area, which is an old industrial park. And you're saying that without growth coming, they wouldn't be able to bond that infrastructure cost?
Correct. Yes, the only way they can bond for that infrastructure cost, if they have no other revenues, is if a company says, hey, we'll come there if you do the road. And then that's where the agreements come into play. If there's no revenues and there's no one committing the revenues, no one's gonna loan money in that scenario.
That answers my question. Does that answer what you were asking?
No, not 100%.
I thought he said a while ago when you asked him that he said the buildings surrounding it would be taxed and help recover that. Is that right or wrong?
Kind of how I took it.
Is that right, Chad? Adam?
We're back to the higher neighbor assessment, right?
Well, no, I think what they're saying is, if this project's done and in the district, and that
Fails.
company folds or whatever, I think you said earlier that it would fall back on all property owners within the TIF district would have to pay back that bond.
What they're asking now
Okay.
is how much it goes up. And he says we get our increment, which the increment is about 4%. If it goes up 10%, the other 6% goes to redevelopment.
That's not the same.
Could.
Okay.
But-
With all due respect, the extent of the hypotheticals here are getting hard to follow on the phone.
And I understand, and I apologize.
No, let me try to do my best to answer them. That's what I'm here to do. There's two different ways that a redevelopment commission generally issues bonds. Okay, with revenues that are available to the commission, kind of like from their general revenues.
The existing revenue.
Existing revenue.
Yeah, okay.
And that's from all the parcels paying in. That's how you would do like a major roadway, right? Like a major section, multiple miles sort of thing. And because you need that many parcels kind of to pay to that, everyone contributing. Where the other scenario is project specific, more like the Wayzata allocation area, right? Where it's like a specific project says, hey, we need this stoplight, we need this road extension, and we will come here if you do that. And then the redevelopment commission essentially pledges and essentially sells off the future revenues, tax revenues from that specific parcel or parcels to be the repayment source for those infrastructure improvements. Those are kind of the two broad strokes. I hope that helps you all.
Okay.
And I'm gonna speak up because I think I can get to Daryl's point. Daryl's question is, are all the you were taking it as all surrounding parcels are gonna have to pay for it.
Right.
All surrounding parcels that have been designated as TIF. Okay, just
Right.
because you're in the TIF district does not mean there's any TIF funding coming from that project either. Okay, that's something that kind of gets lost in it. So what he was saying is, all of these entities that are involved are paying TIF monies, and that would, you're not going to give a $1 million project, you're not going to give them $2 million in infrastructure around them. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
So what helped us with Wayzata is because we went after the building essentially. The building was worth more than what was due on that bond, and we were able to recover it. Does that make sense? So what Adam is trying to say is, and I think he's doing a good job of saying, is you're not going, this idea of there's just going to be this money that's owed and nobody can recover it because there's nobody paying taxes is a very unlikely scenario, because the buildings are going to have value. There's going to be some kind of asset there to be able to retrieve it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's very, very unlikely that you would put something in infrastructure around a TIF property that the property would never have that type of value. You see what I'm saying?
Right. It's not like a, if you build it, they will come kind of thing.
Right.
My
exactly
concern
right.
was like the police thing that was coming, Carbon Motors. Okay, if we help them out, and it failed like it did, do the surrounding people that are in that district suffer and have to end up paying some of that taxes?
No, like your income taxes, their taxes don't go up.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Their taxes don't go, it's not like, oh wait, we failed here, we've got $200,000 debt, we don't have a way to pay it, so everybody's taxes go up. That's not a scenario that can
so
happen.
who holds the bag if they just up and leave like they did?
Well, the RDC would have to go, just like they did with Wayzata, would have to go after them.
Okay.
But
whether
there's-
that's the building.
Right, right.
Or-
But what he was saying is if you actually, this isn't like, hey, I think we're gonna come and we're telling you RDC we're gonna come and you do, you know, $1 million project for us and we don't come. That's not really how this would work, okay? There's gonna be a lot different financial assurances and things like that.
Okay.
Does that make
More
sense?
like you had ink on paper.
Yeah. This isn't like, hey, you're gonna come in 6 months or something and we're gonna do something. We're gonna be working while you're doing something as well.
So otherwise,
Thank you.
for instance, and I've heard the conversation of a Western Avenue project, improvement project, could be a possible project that the RDC addresses. So would the RDC go down Western Avenue and seek out the commercial businesses that would be affected by that project? And would they be necessarily named for that, the cost, the repayment of that project?
So don't get confused with the fact that there's money being captured as there's higher taxes being implemented. You see what I'm saying? Those, I think, so that strip of that mini mall, okay, that's getting the road improvement.
Yeah.
Their taxes don't go up to help pay for it. If their property value goes up, then that could potentially be, you see what I'm saying? If something happens and that makes that property significantly more valuable due
Right.
to the TIF, but for the TIF, but honestly, unless it's an actual improvement to the property, like they built on or they've changed something, it's probably not going to be able to be captured by a TIF. Does that make sense? So just merely a road going by it that makes the property more valuable is not likely to do anything. It'll make the property more valuable and everybody wins. That's what we want. Everybody wins, right? Because their property taxes go up, it's worth more. The property owner's happy because his property's worth more. It's more valuable. But that's not capturable by a TIF because it wasn't but for the TIF. Does that make sense? But for the TIF is really new construction or improvements to a property.
This tip.
Building
Not just,
on or-
not just what he's brought up a couple times is that somebody around him builds on it. Which if I can say, we're worried, we've had a lot of questions about that, and something that strikes me as important to think about is if there's, with two scenarios with Bob's point. One is, hey, the only reason those properties went up is because somebody put a TIF building in there and that really made everything go up, right? But the county or city or whoever, school's not getting as much as they would have had that not happened. So the other alternative is, because it's a but-for test, right? But-for TIF putting that project in, the other buildings wouldn't be worth more. The alternative to that is the TIF building never goes in, those buildings never go up in value. I don't think anybody here wants that. So in Bob's scenario, that's the point that keeps getting tossed around in my brain is that we don't want the scenario of nothing gets improved and nothing goes up. It would be a good scenario to me if a TIF project goes in and makes everything else worth more, even if the taxing entities don't capture any of that, the RDC gets to use that for infrastructure around there. So it's money that wouldn't be there but for the TIF, and that helps everyone.
Well, it's not only that, Jeff, but most of those businesses around that TIF, if they're going to improve their business, they're going to increase their business, therefore increasing potential employees that are going to pay local income tax. That's where we stand to benefit the taxing entities, other taxing entities, is off the income tax, the local income tax.
Right.
Um,
And Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, so where TIF districts are in place, the use of tax abatements has gone away, right? For the most part?
For the most part, yes.
Okay, so if we don't have the TIF district and somebody comes in and asks for the 10-year tax abatement, for 10 years, we're collecting no taxes at all.
Well, no, Dale, you're here. What will an abatement bring into the county? You talk about back tax abatements. You said that's not necessarily a bad thing because we can get money off that abatement, right?
Well, you're talking about an abatement on a potential solar farm out on the west side of the county. In that scenario, Bob, you give a tax abatement in exchange for an economic development payment
Okay.
in lieu of taxes.
It's essentially a TIF. I mean, it's very similar to a TIF.
I never thought about it as being a TIF, but
It's not. And
it brings more money, in that scenario, brings more money to the county for income, because if
It's the only taxing entity, Dale, that will receive that. The library won't receive any, the school corporation won't receive any, and if it happens to be inside the city limits, the city won't receive any of it.
that's true.
It's the same thing as a TIF.
You can call it that if you want, but it's something that, I don't know who worked that out years ago,
Because it was all
Okay.
on the county.
but it's,
I agree with what Dale said. I think there's a stark difference between, I know what, I understand how you see them the same. But the difference is a tax abatement, where does the abatement go to? To the company, to whoever, the building owner.
The abatement,
TIF, that we put the money in infrastructure, if that company ups and leaves, where did that money go? Did it follow the company or did it stay here? It stayed here. The infrastructure improvements, lifestyle improvement,
That's
placemaking
extremely
improvements.
different.
That's the difference, is where do those dollars go? TIF dollars, we keep them here, we invest here. Tax abatements, they go to whoever gets that abatement, not us. And if they up and leave, which has been known, people get their abatements, once their abatement runs out, they find a new community and they go to it.
Well, Chad, let me ask you this question. We're talking these abatements mainly for residentials, but I guess you can use them for commercial.
We use them for commercial, that's how we got what we got.
You know, I wasn't around for that, I don't know nothing about it. But here's the thing. If I'm a developer and I get an abatement to build a subdivision, if I sell that house, does that abatement still go? I mean, that should go back on the tax roll, shouldn't it? If I sell a house, because that abatement's for me, and I've sold the house to you, shouldn't the taxes go on that house
Well, it's a
then?
consistent
It's
every
a
year
consistent
tax
every
abatement.
year.
You see what I'm saying? It's a consistent, so every year they have to follow the rules and they can keep that.
Well, it shouldn't be. I mean, once I've sold my
It-
property, then it should go on the tax rolls.
And it is just my legal opinion that if you have the opportunity to have a TIF on a property or an abatement on a property, there is no question which one you want.
I was just sharing the differences, because I sit through a lot of stuff. Now, I'm just gonna be honest, when I was on city council, I was 100% against TIF. I was. I listened to everything that was told to me. Instead, I started sitting down, I started listening from the experts. And I sit down through Ball State, who, some of those guys, they seem to be very harsh on TIFs, and they are. But they're harsh on the investment TIFs. What are you investing in? And they're telling you if you're not investing in placemaking, you are creating a TIF, it's a bad thing. Invest in placemaking, keep those dollars here. They're the ones who convinced me, because I always loved tax abatements. We wrote an ordinance trying to get tax abatements to spur growth, which didn't help, but we tried to spur growth. And they told me that was basically the dumbest thing I could have done. I was like, well, why? Help me understand. Once I started understanding the process, I was like, oh, because the dollars of TIF stay here, abatements, they can go wherever. So I've studied a lot on TIF. It's a very difficult concept to understand. But so we do tax abatements, we just are doing a tax abatement now. I don't like it, but it's the only traction piece we have. And I look at it as it's harming our community, because now I've got two companies we're doing an abatement through, they're gonna need increased services. How do I provide those increased services when we gave away the farm to get them here? I can't. Because that's the abatement. Through a TIF, I don't have to, I can still increase my services. Oh, there's a TIF, we can increase services. That's how we do that. The TIF dollars stay here and helps our community. Not just the city, it helps the county, it helps the schools. That's the whole goal behind this. It's a multiple faceted approach to grow entire county. It's not like the city's trying to grab money to grow the city. We're trying to grab money to grow the entire community. It's not just the city, because it benefits everyone
in the end.
in the end.
And the key difference between the TIF and the abatement is that the abatement is, they're gonna use it for their property only. The
Yeah.
TIF, we get to use it for the whole district,
Yeah.
improve everybody. And RDC's in control of it.
Is it?
I think Chad's done a great job trying to get this where it should be, but I just think, like Dr. Taylor said, if you guys missed him talking, it was tremendous. I think if all four entities are on board, this can take off. But until then, is there no way to have a meeting, an open meeting? Because I sure don't want a backdoor, I was not asking you to do that. But is there a way to have the four of you in a meeting, open meeting, where everybody can hash it out and let's move on?
We have.
Okay.
I've done that, I don't know how many
Dale, have we
times.
had that, do you feel? I mean, just the four of you guys be able to talk?
I can't do just the four, because I'm not redevelopment commission. I'm not even a voting member. on the
All I'm
redevelopment
asking you is,
commission.
how can we do that to make sure, can we sit down and all talk somewhere on TV? I mean, Is there, Jeff, a way to have that meeting where 4 of them can sit down and
You can always
discuss?
have, you can always have public meetings, yes.
Okay,
But
That's- I mean,
understand-
you're-
I agree with what you're saying, and I'm willing to do more.
I
but
love where you're going.
We have done that, is my point. I know, we've done that a bunch, is my point. Now, a lot of times, they don't show up. I can't control that.
Okay.
But we have extended that offer, we've done it a bunch.
No, I appreciate that, yes.
But if they don't show up, what am I supposed to do?
I get it.
And it's been 3 years in the making now. So for 3 years, they can't say I'm rushing this through or pushing it through or anything. That's not the case.
That's just how I feel, guys. I mean, that's just my opinion, you know.
As far as the resolution before us tonight, we need to determine whether this resolution does follow the comprehensive plan or not.
It covers the whole, basically the same one it did last time, when it's thinner. It goes all the way from the courthouse to 450.
You mean the district?
Yes,
Okay.
it's the same one we had before, except for they took off Vine Street.
We
Yeah.
took out 3rd Street, we took out East Side, we took out the lot. All along the Walmart, I call it Walmart, the old Walmart Plaza, I don't know what it's called now, Whitewater Plaza, we took all of that out. We took a lot out.
I guess my question would be, and Chad, maybe you can answer this, or maybe Bill can answer it. How does this follow the comprehensive plan that the APC approved of the cities?
Honestly, I haven't had a chance to sit down and
There you go again.
go through, well, Bob,
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing we're talking about here, having that time.
but, yeah, and since I wasn't at the presentation for the RDC.
So can you answer this? We voted on this more than a year ago, didn't we? And
well,
passed this resolution under.
Now,
so-
because aspects of the comprehensive plan were, okay, reinvestment. Okay, there's projects there's reinvestment, there's infill. The general welfare is to make investments and improve the economy of the community, and it is doing that. So that is.
Potentially.
Yeah,
It
so
could.
that potentially is there, because that's a consistent thing between what was previously in place, the one the county still has, and then also the city, because there's a big part of it is that the economic development requires making investments in the infrastructure, and that is what this would do.
Yeah.
I spent a good chunk of yesterday going through the comprehensive plan. It's like 274 pages. I probably hit about 200 of them. To my way of thinking, it does hit those markers.
Well, that was my opinion, that it follows as well as the last one did.
Yeah.
So,
Gary, you started to say we voted on this a year ago. What did we vote on a year ago you were gonna say?
when they brought this to us, was it a year ago, Chad, or a year and a half ago?
It's about this time of year.
About this time of the year,
Yeah, it was this time last year, then you guys approved the comprehensive plan in January.
Yeah.
the new one, new comprehensive plan. But this was brought to us a year ago and I'm not sure, Darrell, I don't know that you were on the board yet.
I don't remember that, but
Yes, he was.
What, was he? Okay. Because it was a procedural thing, they had to go through, it had to be approved by the APC that it does meet the comprehensive plan.
And then it had to go back to council, and council killed it.
Killed, or shut it down at the time. or-
RDC shut it down.
RDC did, okay. So now they're taking the steps again and going through the procedural.
For clarification, it actually passed last time. It passed through, then later on, a handful of months later, then RDC listened to the complaints that they were getting from the different government entities, and they then dissolved it.
And that's why we started our TIF 101 training immediately after that every month. That's why we did that. Thought we'd give another year of training and we'll go back at it, so we spent the entire year training.
Yeah, because in essence is the goals and your objectives from both, what the county still has in place and then the city. I mean, they're,
And I need to
They're
clarify,
essentially the same.
there were some technical issues, I think, with the last TIF too, that made that,
Yes.
just remembering that, yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct.
People outside.
Yeah, there was-
So that's why it's hit
There's-
before us again tonight.
Right.
They've started over with the
Right.
procedural process. Our RDC has.
Okay, thank you.
I had misremembered that detail, yeah.
So with that,
So for clarification, basically the only thing that we are voting on is whether this meets the criteria for the,
Comprehensive plan.
yeah.
yes,
And everything else is basically off the table.
yes. That we are not a board that decides those other issues.
Then why is one of the county at large asking us to table this? What would
Well,
be the?
because, you
Hold on,
know,
Bob, hold on.
hypocrisy is
Bob,
something
hold
I
on.
really don't care for, I'll tell you the truth. We had a project possibly here
Bob, I
that
haven't
could bring
got to ask
$2 to
my
$3 million
question yet.
into this county, and we put it off for a year. And this one here, we're gonna jump on it.
Well, you need to let people finish, and then we can ask those questions. And so I would like to know, Dale, do you know why Scott Bevington is asking us to table this? If it really has no effect other than us sending that to them? And not to put you on, I apologize, but
I'm hesitant to speak for Scott
Okay.
Bevington,
that's fine.
but he and I both, our chief reason for being so interested in this is the potential for loss of future revenue
Huh.
on the part of the county. That would include the school.
Right, I
corporation,
understand that.
library also. So that's our chief concern.
Okay.
Is revenue. And that's always what the fight's
Sure,
about.
it is.
Money, who's gonna get to spend it? Now, if I could, while I've got my mouth open, ask a question on the comprehensive plan. I was present for this process last December, and not once did I ever hear mention of the comprehensive plan in this process. How does the comprehensive plan now play into it when a year ago it didn't?
No, it did. We got in the weeds. And we're on our old comprehensive plan. We got in the weeds when we did we were doing the comprehensive plan at the time. It got passed in January. Was it January it passed? I think it was
Yeah.
January.
Yeah, so when they came here before, the comprehensive plan wasn't in place.
Well,
The new
the old one
It
was.
was outdated and didn't,
Right, yeah.
Okra wouldn't, well, I won't say wouldn't accept it, but it was outdated, so we couldn't apply for any grants. That's why we
Right.
did the comprehensive plan.
Update.
You know, I'll say respectfully, some people would call that a bait and switch.
It's not a big switch.
Well, the comprehensive plan last year was no issue, now it is. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, it was an issue, Dale. We had to vote on the same resolution.
Yeah, you had the same resolution, but
A year
I
ago.
don't remember anything about the comprehensive plan being the deciding factor.
Well, didn't the old plan didn't meet a lot of specifications that we had to change, it had to be reviewed and changed?
Hey, Adam, you want to clarify the statute on this?
I will do my best. You know, the intention is really to make sure that commission is reviewing the comprehensive plan and the economic development plan, making sure that those are consistent. I can't speak to the resolution last year. I wasn't specifically involved in that, but I can assure you that the statutory process that's being followed is consistent with state law.
For me,
Before you guys proceed, could I make a couple of comments and a couple of observations? I don't like being in interference with anything the city does. I like to stay on my side of the street, and let them stay on their side of the street. But like I said, the only interest I have here is future revenue for the county so that we can provide the services that we're already obligated to do without having to reduce anything in the future. So, I want to see growth and prosperity just as much as everyone else does. I'll be the first to admit, I am not a TIF expert. But I can see for sure there is a big if in TIF. And just by listening to all the questions that were fielded here tonight, I can see that I'm not the only one that doesn't know everything they want to know about the way this thing works. If you guys choose to delay this process, it's not going to be the end of the world, and we're not going to lose our interest in future growth and development. But I would caution against going into this without knowing as much as you possibly can. Now, I'll put it this way, if you've ever been to the dentist and they say, you're not gonna feel a thing, and you don't until you walk out the door, and 2 hours later, you find out they've got a real sneaky way of ruining your day. And I don't want you or anyone else to do anything with a TIF that would have the same effect later on, you know. It may not hurt for 5 years, but if it's going to be terrible after that, I would want to know, you know, going into it. So I don't envy your guys' positions tonight. You've been put in a tough spot. And it's a hard decision to make. And all too often the decisions that we do make, we don't know if we made the right decision until years later. So my main caution is be careful, be really, really careful, and know as much as you can about this. I don't feel like I know enough about it, but the decision is yours to make. And we can make this together, or we can make it separately. But I think the more people, I give Chad credit. The TIF 101 sessions that Mr. Stone has put on, I've attended every one of them. I've encouraged other people to do the same. I can't help it if they don't. But you know, the sessions are so far for me, they haven't gotten into the weeds as far as we have here tonight. We've gotten kind of into the weeds here tonight, which is where all the details are. So, you know, I would just express caution about this whole thing. And I don't want to do any more to extend the length of your meeting tonight. But thanks for letting me speak on this, and I'll leave the rest of it to you.
I feel like Chad's done his homework, and he's not looking to screw the school, the county, or anything else. I'm just not sure that everybody understands it like you have right now. And you've studied and went to, and I appreciate that as a mayor doing that and looking out for our city. I just think we have too many people not on the same page as Chad, and we got to get those people to stand behind him, because if he stands alone, it's not going to work. We got to have people stand behind him and help him.
I agree with that, though, but I've offered.
We don't, Chad, we don't need, I mean, I get
I know,
that.
but how-
I will stand here and say thank you 100 times,
I can't go beat 'em.
but how do we do this at a meeting where we can all sit down and say, hey, we're on the same page. I got this question answered, I got that question answered, you know what I mean? So,
I'm just saying we've tried.
good.
That's like all these questions have come up in the TIF 101 meeting. Every one of these questions, except there's a couple that hasn't.
Well, as Dr. Taylor said, if not everyone's on board, it won't work, did he not? He stood right over there and said that day. And I don't feel like everyone's on board, so it's not gonna work. And he had a lot of knowledge of how doing this, would you not agree? But he said if not everyone's on the same page, it's not gonna work. So So that for me, it meant a lot, and I appreciate whoever got him down there, because he was very informative. Thank you.
And I understand that maybe Cartersville's a little bit different than other communities. But I've talked to the people that have put these together and that have passed the legislation. They said it was never meant to do this, taking the whole city. I mean, basically you're doing that. And there's mayors that's doing it. I don't know the success rate they're having with it, but some of them are messing up pretty big too, so.
Can I speak?
Sure. Everyone else has.
I know that
Rules of order.
I know that.
Bill didn't follow, actually.
Bill Crawford, and I live here in Connersville, Indiana, on Ranch Road. And Mr. Strong, he mentioned that, you know, this TIF, and I haven't followed this real closely, but the TIF, if it improves industry and workforce in Connersville, Indiana, it will affect what the revenue is in the county, because there'll be people working and paying taxes, and that's where all that money comes from, is taxes. And in respect to Chad, it's kind of like he said, he calls a meeting and nobody comes. And, you know, they offered the 101, TIF 101 to
I've been there.
everybody. I
Yep.
mean, but evidently, you know, not everybody, and I'm one of them, I didn't go to those meetings, but it doesn't affect my decision. And really, in this decision that you guys are making tonight, you're not deciding whether you're gonna have TIF or not. All you're deciding is that it
Whether it follows the
passes
plan.
that comprehensive plan.
Well, that's
And
not-
the reason why it wasn't, with the comprehensive plan before is because they found out it was outdated and they wouldn't accept it. And that plan had been in place for how many years?
2011.
2011. I mean, it has no concept of what we're doing today here in Connersville or Fayette County. And that comprehensive plan should have been null and void a long time ago.
But yet
But
we're getting
the-
letters from county commissioners saying, table this. So, I mean, I guess not everybody understands it.
Well,
Because, I mean, and so that's what we gotta make, because if it was that easy, that we're just going to reap in the money, everybody would say, hell yeah, let's do this.
But that's
But
the
it's-
problem is, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's the problem is they had chances to ask all these questions in the past and they didn't do them.
Okay.
And now they're bringing those up and it's not too late. But if you guys pass this resolution, it's not gonna bring TIF. There's still other entities that have to go through.
Right.
And it's kind of like, you know, a lot of things come in there before the Board of Zoning. We can make decisions on resolution, but we can't make that decision to make it and be implemented. It has to go through the county, the city, and all that. So it's not like you're making a TIF decision, you're just making a resolution, passing a resolution that it does meet the comprehensive plan.
But to
And-
me,
And we're
people are,
digging into it way too deep because you don't have any authority over it. You're sitting here talking about things that you have no authority over.
so
Other than
why,
just passing this resolution.
why would we get letters from the Fayette County at-large members to table this if?
Because
they-
he thinks that's what we're doing. We're not passing the
No,
TIF. That's what
exactly.
Scott's thinking we're doing. We're not doing it.
And that's exactly what I'm saying.
So,
is
you know, we're
we-
beating this to death
Yeah,
right now, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
kind of pointless. Like, we've
Yeah.
brought up a lot of good points and stuff.
But that
but-
should be brought up to those others.
Yeah, you're gonna have time to bring this stuff up again. All we're doing is voting on, or trying to pass the resolution to proceed with
That's
the.
right.
But Gerald, if
Okay,
we
what's the
do,
next
we
two
are
steps?
passing it in a way. We're limiting
No,
it
you're not.
No, you're not.
If we,
Yeah.
it won't go any further, they're gonna have to get things changed, come back again.
Exactly.
But if we
What
do
hap-
this,
what
get
happened-
going.
what
Well,
happens
you need
if-
this comprehensive, thing for other things besides this. All we're doing is passing, am I correct right now? We're just passing the comprehensive,
You're saying that we use the comprehensive plan,
yeah, but as far as, but we need the plan,
Something that hasn't
yeah.
been said, which can happen, is we can't, if you guys approve this, we can't change it to larger. We can actually go back and make it smaller. That is something that the RDC can do
Right.
before it goes to council. So the option's still there to work on that. We presented a case of why we want it what it is, but we can go back and make modifications to it. Not larger, but smaller.
And I guess to your statement about Scott, and I appreciate his letter. and I appreciate him speaking. However, he says nothing in his letter pertaining to why we should delay this.
Exactly.
Because of it not meeting the comprehensive plan.
Yes.
He mentions nothing of the comprehensive plan. That's my only concern about Scott's letter.
Right.
Jeff, could you reiterate that I think we've lost track of what the next two steps are?
They would go to the council, and then it would go to finalize an RDC.
Okay.
We're only step 2 of the TIF.
Correct.
Yeah.
And is the RDC the public hearing?
Will there be a public hearing?
There was already,
Oh, that was the public, RDC initially is the public hearing. So with
no, we have,
us,
no, I take that back, I take that back. It is the, I can't remember now, it's council, there's still, it's
RDC, APC, council, RDC, public hearing.
RDC public hearing.
so there's still another public hearing.
That's the last.
And that'll have to be given 10-day notice, correct?
But the council, when this goes to the city council, it will not be a public hearing?
I don't believe so. You know,
Oh, but it'll be at a public meeting.
It's a public meeting, but not a
But,
public hearing.
yeah,
public hearing should already.
a meeting in public.
A public hearing for who?
The public.
Okay, but who's gonna be the ones that vote based on what we hear at the public hearing? Are we gonna be there and is that our vote? Is it your vote or what?
RDC has final vote.
There you go, so we're out of the picture.
Jeff,
People can still go and relate what the questions they're asking right now, because that doesn't end your concerns with that in front of the RDC. So that option still exists.
Does it have to be a
Democratic
unanimous
convention.
vote at the
We're gonna vote for
RDC?
Biden and
pass it? Or is it
No.
majority?
Is it a simple majority that creates?
Majority.
Simple?
Jeff, whether we pass this or not tonight, it still moves forward?
No.
Because see, I don't think everybody understands, because we're sitting here talking and he thinks it automatically goes anyway. I don't think it does.
No, it doesn't go.
I mean, it
to-
goes, moves forward.
It does not move forward.
No, it doesn't move forward, just.
With the favorable vote.
Okay. So we can get this moved on, I would entertain a motion to approve, is this the resolution number 2023-2?
Yeah, because we've only had one
Is that
resolution,
ours?
that's ours.
We've had things before, we don't have a full council tonight, we have how many voting members, 8 here tonight or 7?
We have
6.
Is it gonna take 9 votes to win it, to pass it?
It's a simple majority of the full
Well, we didn't
board.
do that
So it's
on the,
4.
we didn't do that on the,
Was there not mentioned there was
remember,
5
had to
votes
have
that
5
had to be
based on the
had?
9.
That's
Yes.
a simple
But you
majority.
don't-
That's a simple majority.
Yeah, but we only have 8, will 4 do it, or have 5 here tonight?
It has to be 5 votes.
Okay, all right.
And I would have explained it. I would entertain a motion
Gary?
to approve.
I want to ask one more question, just for clarification for me. Let me borrow your picture. This picture, is this what is considered the downtown economic development area, this whole thing?
Yeah, but it's all the same tip.
Well, I'm just going off of what this says. I just wanted to clarify in my head what we're talking here. Make sure it's all the same.
Gary, I'd like to make a motion that we table this until next month, until we find out a little more about it. That's the motion I would like to make.
Been a motion made and seconded for tabling it next month. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded to table. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Can we do a
by
roll call
vote?
Darren Price,
No.
Dale Munson,
Yes.
Gary Naylor,
No.
Robert Stewart,
Yes.
Brian Robb,
No.
and Darrell Drew.
Yes.
The vote?
3-3.
What are we doing ties?
Well, there is no.
You
there is
can't
no-
get to 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
And
down vote.
Effectively, you're gonna table it without a vote.
No, I don't think so, is it?
Well, I mean, you're not, you gotta.
He didn't
make sure-
get 5 votes, so it failed.
In the next meeting.
The motion, no, I agree, the motion fails, but if you guys don't pass the motion tonight, you're effectively tabling it.
Yeah, yeah.
Understand it, but we're not getting invited to it. I don't know how many times.
So, seeing that we didn't get 5 votes, the motion fails. I would entertain a motion to accept the resolution, 2023-2.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion made and seconded that we approve resolution 2023-02. Any other discussion? All in favor? By roll call, please.
Darren Price,
Yes.
Dale Munson,
No.
Gary Naylor,
Yes.
Robert Stewart,
No.
Brian Robb,
Yes.
Darrell Drew.
No.
Motion dies due to a lack of majority. Simple majority. So, it'll be delayed till next meeting.
Yes, which is the, okay, what is the actual date of it? But it's the 3rd Thursday of November.
Yeah.
Why then? Because we didn't table it.
And Chad, I'd like to say thank you, but I mean, again, I think if we get more knowledge like you have,
Bring it back.
I think
Yeah,
this can
16.
work.
16th.
I'm sorry.
Chad, I'm-
All right, November 16th will be the next area plan commission meeting.
So is this motion dead? Because I don't even know why it doesn't meet the comprehensive plan.
They didn't vote for it to be dead, they voted for it, they just haven't voted on any of it, so
Why
it's
does it
just,
not
it's
meet the
gonna,
comprehensive plan?
they're not gonna make the decision tonight.
We're just tabling it. We didn't vote against it, so.
We made a motion to approve it and it didn't pass.
Right, it's 3-3, so
We didn't reach a simple majority either way, so it just dies. It would be no different than if we didn't have a quorum here, which would have been easier if they just wouldn't have come. Then we wouldn't have had to go through all this.
But we wouldn't got some of the answers we got tonight either.
That's true.
I mean, so that's a bad way to look at it.
And
I think we had a lot of good answers tonight and a lot of good information to take back and think about it. So saying not having a meeting, I think is kind of, I don't know, a bad situation.
But just about every one of those questions has been asked in the past.
I got more answered tonight, almost as many as I did from Dr. Taylor.
I'm talking about in all the meetings we've had.
Yeah, I haven't attended, I was invited to the last one, so I was there, you know.
I know, I'm not saying that.
No, I know.
And I would just like to take a minute to thank Adam for all of his input, not only tonight, but at the previous meetings and all the council meetings. Thank you for your time.
Hey, my pleasure, and I'm here if there's any other questions. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
After that, do you want to deal with the,
Is there any reason for us to move on with the parking ordinance tonight? We haven't opened the public hearing. There doesn't seem to be anybody here that wants to talk on it, so we can address it later, or we can address it now. What's the pleasure of the board?
Come back.
You need a motion to table it? Or what?
I'd
What
make
do
a
we
motion
need?
to continue it. yeah.
Continuance?
So be it.
There's a motion made to continue the public hearing for the parking ordinance.
I'll second that.
There's, and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign. Motion carries.
now, Gary, your request about the solar energy?
Yeah, the Solar Energy Committee, I would like to establish a organizational meeting with the steering committee, the I've asked Bill if the 9th of November would be possible for advertising purposes. Darren, does that work for you?
Should, yes.
Okay.
At what time?
Like 6 maybe, is that okay, Darren? Okay.
At 6 p.m.?
And I'll,
To actually dig into it, compare it against the city's comprehensive plan. I will make time somewhere in here to do this. And we have another one in front of the next commissioners meeting. We'll be reviewing the new development standards for the city and then also the county.
Can I make a comment? It's been mentioned tonight about, I've attended one RDC meeting.
But no, I agree with you 100%.
We're getting a lot of negative feedback at county council because we're budget, and that's it. The mayor's not been to one county council meeting to explain this to us either. You're wanting to get involved, get the mayor to a county council meeting, let's talk about it.
Well, I think it needs to be somewhere in a central place where everybody can sit down and talk about it on TV.
He'll get all the questions, and your gentleman can be there too, I don't care. But the county council is really upset about things going on, and because we look budget, and what's it gonna hurt?
I just feel like no one, we're still asking questions, like you just asking about RDC. I mean, we're still asking questions that we don't know
I agree,
about it
Dale,
yet.
I agree.
We're not 100%, so I mean, this meeting, Garrett, no, nothing towards you, but this meeting was very helpful. I mean, not to have this meeting would have not,
I'm glad it was.
so, I mean, it was very helpful, but I still feel like county council's got questions. I feel like the library, have they ever been talked to? Who's on their board? Do we know that comes to this? I mean,
Well,
and,
He's
I
sitting
know
right
the
here.
superintendent, you on the library board?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'm only one of them.
Right, no, I get it, but I mean,
Oh, I
so-
thought you was the board.
so you can take it back to the
Now, Dale,
library.
you've told me for years you were the library board.
I never told you anything.
So you take it back to the library and they kind of understand what's going on?
I'll do my best, though.
But you haven't met yet, though, to let them know.
No, well, to tell you the truth, our members there haven't had a lengthy discussion about
Okay.
this since last year when this was up.
Okay. I just feel like if we all get they all get somewhere and get on the same page, we can push this right along.
Okay.
So it benefits everybody, so.
Well,
We had a
I mean,
motion,
if the mayor's been a county council, you may not have had a letter from Scott. I mean, we don't know what's going on.
I'm not gonna point the
but we've
finger. I
gotta
mean,
pay
the mayor
bills
has
in
done a
this
lot of
county.
legwork is what I'm gonna say so far, and I appreciate what he has done. I just think we gotta get everybody in the same room. That's for me. Are we ready to adjourn? I'll make a motion.
I think we've already got the motion, don't we?
I third it.
No, we don't? Okay.
I'll make a motion, we attend, or we adjourn.
Okay.
Motion made and seconded for adjournment. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.
No, we want to
Thank you.
stay here longer.